Want to go far in business and in life? You can't do it alone. The secret is expanding your network of personal relationships, building friendships, connecting on an intimate level, away from the office, over a coffee or cocktail. Welcome to All In with the real Nate Payo. The show that asks what happens when you go all in and leverage the power of your network of personal relationships.
From author Donnie Bovine comes the book, How to Be a Success Champion, available on Amazon. After years of living other people's dreams, author Donnie Bovine decided to jump out on his own and start a business, thinking it would be easy. Instead, he had a rude awakening and quickly understood that he had spent 20 years being an employee and had no idea how to be a business owner. His business was tanking, and he was on the brink of losing everything when he decided to fight for business freedom. In this must-read and life-changing book, author Donnie Bovine shares with readers his story intermingled with lessons learned from his mistakes and his failures. In How to Be a Success Champion, you will find advice the author received from mentors and how he went from zero to a six-figure business. The author walks you through the steps of how to get out of your own way, how to play the game of business and win, find your strengths, how to network effectively, how to build a personal brand, how to create champions for your business, how to get great at sales, how to take complete ownership of you and your business. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Bovine, available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback editions. Order your copy right now. It makes a great book for corporate events too. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Bovine, available on Amazon.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the All In podcast with Nate Payo. Of course, I am your host, Nate Payo. Today, I'm joined with Russell Nohelty. He's a USA Today bestselling author, speaker, and six-figure creative entrepreneur. He's raised over $170,000 on Kickstarter, built a mailing list of over 20,000 people, and exhibited at more than 150 events since 2016. Now he teaches creatives how to lead a complete and successful life through his teaching academy and podcast, The Complete Creative. Welcome to the show, Russell. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So we were kind of talking briefly. You're up to a lot of things. Curious, what did you raise money for on Kickstarter?
Well, I'm a novelist and a graphic novelist, so all of my stuff have been books, anthologies, or novels. There's a lot of other categories that do quite a lot better than publishing and comics on Kickstarter, but I'm very proud of that. We have been often one of the most funded projects every time that we launch. It's not that there's not a lot of money in the comics book category, but like doing $25,000 in board games or films is quite banal. And doing it in comics is quite a bit more impressive because the category just the numbers that they raise is just not as high as some of the other like tech or other categories. So
very cool. How did you kind of like get started in Kickstarter? Like what convinced you like, hey, this is someplace I need to hang out and see if it works or not?
Well, comics is what I'm known for, and sort of the thing that you do in comics is do conventions and do Kickstarter. So it wasn't really a question of like what I was going to do. That was just how you made money. And it's still how you make money. Well, less so conventions right now, but you still generally are making most of your money on Kickstarter and then selling it through at conventions or doing online advertising. So it wasn't like you didn't have a choice. That was like what you did. It's sort of like how you raise money for a film. You raise money for a film by doing a Kickstarter. You just like that the whole community is there, so that's what you do.
Yeah. How long have you been in the comic book world and doing it as your source of income, not just recreationally?
So I started producing books in 2010. I went full time in 2015. So for 5 years, I've been making money doing books, novels, comics, and then also teaching people how to build their own creative careers.
Very cool. So I usually like to ask my guest a question regarding the word luck. What does luck mean to you, and has it played a role in your life?
Well, I talk about this in my book, How to Build Your Creative Career. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So everyone can get lucky and meet, well, Stanley's dead now, but Jim Lee, let's say, or Steven Spielberg. But it really is only luck if you are able to provide him with a great script or a great film or like something that will endear him to you. Otherwise, that luck is just nothing. It's a nothing. And so that's my one feeling about luck. I also think that most people that are entrepreneurs are trying to build their careers on luck. They're trying to model things that are unmodelable because they rely on luck. In a lot of ways, venture capital is luck based. It's nearly impossible to scale. Especially past the number. And when you are past that number, what made Dropbox succeed and SugarSync and some of the other tech that was the same exact better tech than Dropbox fail is, even though they both had money behind them, is sort of unknowable. It's ineffable. It's just kind of like it's kind of like why one actress is a hit and one is a dud, or like one goes on to be a movie star and one is doing commercials in 5 years. Like there's some amount of skill and talent, but it's almost all luck. And I hate modeling myself on luck. And I always tell entrepreneurs that they're modeling things the wrong way. they have these pie in the sky ideas of being the next Dropbox, but to be the next Dropbox means you have to get lucky so many ways. You have to get the right team in place. Plus you have to be in the right place at the right time. And I was there when Dropbox started. Like, it's kind of a piece of garbage. It was a piece of garbage product that like kind of got better and kind of worked over time. And it was like easy, but it was very lazy to do. It was not intuitive. It was not convenient. It just happened to be around at a time and get the right contracts and be able to get the right money at that time. That's not to say that it's not good tech or it's not deserving to be the name that it has, but that it beat out all of these other companies is a large part luck. And even venture capitalists will say that it's a large amount of luck because they are betting on 10 horses, hoping one of them wins, knowing 9 of them are going to fail. And, serial entrepreneurs are starting 10 companies, hoping that one is going to take off. And so you can build a pretty successful lifestyle business by modeling a lot of things that work and doing things that work. But to be able to scale to the level of a Dropbox or a Stephen King is something that like most people that's their model, and their model is broken because like it is almost wholly dependent on luck after some level, because every company that was like Dropbox started at the same time and with the same quality people and with the same money and with the same goals. And one of them happened to succeed and the other ones didn't. And so I really kind of hate luck. In fact, my novels are a lot about destiny and luck and how you can rail up and make your own luck and make your own destiny. But you have to take intentional action to do that.
Yeah, it's very true what you say. Like you have like preparation, and you have to be in the right places at the right time, whether it's a startup or trying to be build a career socially. But then there's also this adoption, like how many apps have come and gone, and like they like, hey, this is gonna be the next best Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. And they kind of like come up for a little bit, like Periscope or some of these other Vine, and then they just like fizzle out because of the adoption of it. And like, what makes one get adopted more than another? The product could be good, but it doesn't get used, so it doesn't really take off, or it's not a smash success. It's very interesting that you talk about like the luck in that set. So if somebody was looking, saying, hey, I want to build a career in creative, what do you tell them to do instead of following, I guess, the blueprint to success that's readily available on social media?
Well, on some level, you do have to rely on a blueprint because the people that are very successful are the ones that are writing books on the subject. So like they're the ones that you can blueprint. So I'm not saying that you should not put that into your model or use that even as a part of your model. But people are wholly dependent on that luck part often, and they're overvaluing hard work, the hard work that goes in. Sorry, they're making an assumption that these people worked harder than other people, and that these people then were more deserving than these other people. Whereas it was hard work, but there was also a big component of luck, which you have to add into the equation. And most people are not doing that. So what I ask them all the time is, tell me, explain to me your perfect human, one singular human who buys your work or will buy your work or will be affected by what you do. And now I've asked this thousands of times, and I can't think of a time where someone answered it appropriately. They often answer, they're 28 to 35, like college woman, like soup and wearing shoes and stuff. And I'm like, that's not a human. Like that's nothing. You just described to me a nothing. And so the first thing that I ask them to do, and they really have to drill down on, is who is the perfect person? What is the psychographic information? Not the demographic information, but the psychology behind the person who is going to buy your work. Because I have fans that are 18 and fans that are 80. And I can tell you they are not the same age or the same gender or the same sex, but they all have the same spirit underneath them. And that is sort of what I try to go for these for people. And generally, I can't say 100 times out of 100, although it's pretty much been 100 times out of 100. I think there's been 2 times out of the thousands of times I've asked this that someone actually had a real answer to that question. The question that most people ask me is, well, what do I make for people? Like what do I make them? And my answer to them is, like, if you knew your audience well enough, you would never have to ask that question. So the fact that you're even asking that question means you have no idea who you're making stuff for, and that is your biggest mistake.
Yeah, I'm curious about this a little further because when you mentioned that, like, hey, describe your person, and like I was like, oh yeah, usually people are very generic, and the answer you gave that is apparently the wrong answer was like what I was thinking in my head would be like, hey, I would have had the right answer. I would have said it's this person, this age range, they're doing this thing, but I would have been wrong, and I haven't really seen it phrased that before, of like that level of depth that you're going into. So I'm curious to see like, how would you answer that question? So I kind of have an understanding of like where, if I was going to ask that question of myself, whether I'm producing a book or a business or a widget, or was it like, you still have to get to that level of detail. So I'm really interested to see like how far I need to go to get that answer figured out.
Okay, so I'm going to discount demographic information at this point. I'm going to point you to the bee that's on my wall back there. That's one I painted. That is our mascot, Melissa the Wannabe. She represents everything that is good about a wannabe, about someone who likes our work. Basically, they're 2 slightly different profiles for the Complete Creative and Wannabe Press, but they very much overlap as well. So a good wannabe is rebellious, creative, artistic, insightful. They are practical. They are no nonsense. They're anti-authority. They're basically like a punk rock kid who grew up to have an office job. So they are very much like damn the man, save the empire, and they like that. They have this sort of like spirit of rebellion about them, and the kinds of stuff that they like are kind of like fast-paced. Action, comedy, like they like things that will make them think, but that also like entertain them thoroughly. And it's been a very long day, so I can't name like off the top of my head like their top 5 favorite like movies or TV, but I can say Invader Zim is one of them. Jonah Vasquez is one of them. Generally have a high bent for fantasy and horror. There, you can tell in our books back here that I have behind me, like the kind of thing that like, this is the kind of thing that they want. And it carries across all of the work that we put out. And it has nothing to do with demographics. Like, demographics are only helpful in targeting ads, but they are not helpful for targeting messaging. And messaging is way more powerful than ads. The more powerful that you can be in the messaging, and the more you can drill down on that messaging to focus on one person and really make it feel like you're changing them or that you wrote it for them, the more chance you have to succeed. Otherwise, you're going to be like plain old white bread. And plain old white bread is fine and was fine in the 1930s, but no one's making a living on plain old white bread anymore. They're making a living making something specific for somebody specific. And for people that and for people that are starting their businesses now, or even if they've been in business a long time, the way to scale is through doing unscalable things like finding your audience and like drilling down into a niche or a customer type that will that you can really resonate with, because there's going to be millions of people in your circle like doing the exact same thing. Like we are both making podcasts in the entrepreneurial space. Like that is there are millions of other podcasts. By some accounts, 30 to 40% of all podcasts are business podcasts. So how do I, the way that I differentiate myself is the way that I talk, the things that I talk about, and who I talk to very specifically.
Yeah. You know, it's when you started describing that person and in a different way, it became clear to me. Like when you were naming those, the first example of like the person's this, they were this age group, they're this demographic. I was imagine a generic person like that probably did this thing, you know, and it was like, hey, that makes sense. But when you like really drill down into it, like, and I'm looking back at your books, I'm going to mess it up. What is it called? The Chulu? Or,
Cthulhu is hard to spell. Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter. I mean, you can see an upcoming book that we're doing. Like, this is the main character from one of the upcoming books that we're doing. Yeah. You know, it's all meant for that one kind of person.
So when you were describing that person in that detail, like an exact individual that I know popped in my head. I was like, that's him. Like, I know exactly who that person is. And because I know exactly what that person likes in this stuff that you just talked about, I also know a few other things that they're interested in too. So if I was really right into that demographic, it's like, okay, I know they like this, but I also kind of know that they like a little bit else. And so if I'm right into that one person in a super deep level, like they're just going to love that stuff. But how do you talk to somebody that says, hey, if I'm only writing to one person, then my market's only one person. Like, how can I make a business that's scalable out of this? And how do you guide them through this path of saying, hey, look, if you're this level of detail, it's going to scale because of XYZ, or, you know, why does it work this way when you're super narrow that you're not just eliminating everybody out so you don't have enough people?
Well, scale is stupid. The people that worry about scale are worrying about the absolute wrong thing. They're actually worried. So marketing for years has been drilling this thing into people of scale. The problem is when you scale, you are nothing to nobody. Like, nobody wants to be McDonald's. Do you want to be McDonald's? I mean, except for the money. Like who is the customer of McDonald's? They're like everyone. They're generic.
Yeah.
You do not have the marketing resources to hit every person. You just don't. Like, you are not a person. Like everybody has things that they like and things that they don't like. And there are 7 billion people in this world. And if you're telling me that like you can't find 10,000 out of 7 billion, like, you're not trying. You're just not trying. Like that. Like what you need to have a good business is probably about 1,000 customers, and way less if you run something at like $1,000 or $2,000 a month, or you're doing like a lot of high-end ticket sales. You could make a good living with 10 customers for the rest of your career. Like, I know people who have 2 customers, Marvel and DC Comics, and that is like their whole life is based on those things and has been for years. And that is the only customer that they have. This is the only customer that they care about, really. Well, they care about the fans who buy the work, but like the person who's buying their stuff is Marvel or DC, which is, there's only two companies like that in comics that are that big and huge, that have that much IP. So you can do a whole lot with like one or two real big whale clients. But the problem, you mentioned something that was really interesting, because you said when I was explaining the person who who buys my books, then a name popped into your head, like a person popped into your head, and that is the most important part of marketing. That like either you are the person or you know the person very specifically who was this something was being written for. I mean, everybody has 1,000 articles that they read a day, and very few that they turn back to and go back to over and over and over and over and over again. But I come from movies and TV. That's how I grew up. That's how I moved to Los Angeles. And my first manager said something very interesting to me. He said, "Look, you got to know what you're going to do. You've got to know how to be the top 3 people on one list. You've got to be like, you can't write a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of that. You've got to be the guy who does this. And you can't just be the top 10 people, because every genre has like the 10 people that they write down. You've got to be a top 3 person in one genre, because if you are a top 3 person in one genre, then every time someone wants that genre, then they are going to call you. And every time somebody thinks about that genre, then they are going to refer you. Because if somebody now is like, hey, who should I talk to? We're making a new monster movie. And they're like, oh, you should talk to these 3 people. That is that means you're getting referrals from other people, word of mouth, which is the most important thing. And you're also in the top of your ideal customers list of people. And I mean, it's just like there's 7 billion people in this world. Like I just I'm making a thing for one person, and there's not going to be scale just is irrelevant, because there's literally 7 billion people in this world. And I would much rather be the number 1 person for a few thousand of those people or a few hundred of those people than a nothing burger to all of them. And that is what you risk when you make something that is too plain or too vanilla. You do not have the scale, the money and resources and scale to scale a nothing burger company. There are plenty of nothing burger companies. Like, for instance, Dropbox is a nothing burger company. It is just like, what is Dropbox? Like, who is Dropbox customer? Like some sort of thing, I guess. But they have like millions of customers, but they also have had millions upon millions and probably billions of dollars of investment at this point. Unless you're planning to get that much investment, it's just too hard to get into the national consciousness of that many people to be able to be the resource. And it takes money, it takes time, and so I guess my answer is like, I don't know. There's 7 billion people in this world. I would rather when I read something that is made for me, I become a fan of that thing. When I read the other 99 articles I read in a day, like I literally don't even think about those articles or who they are. It could be written by any human. And the way you grow an audience and grow a fan base is to be very specifically for something, not for everyone.
And it sounds like you've had some good teachers, mentors in your life that had shared this knowledge with you earlier, and it stuck with you and it resonated. Is it enough to like write for yourself and say like, I'm this person, this is somebody I would write to, is exactly me? Or do you need to really think a little bit broader and say, hey, I need to write towards an exact somebody? Maybe it's like, your neighbor across the street, say, that's the person I'm going to go after. Should I write towards that person, or should I write it towards me because I'm kind of that person and that's who I'm trying to relate with? I'm kind of curious on that.
I don't know. I mean, are you the person that's going to have the lowest customer acquisition cost and the highest lifetime customer value? I don't know if that is the thing. I'll give you an example. Jonah Vasquez wrote a book called Jonah the Homicidal Maniac. He thought it was going to be for 18 to 24-year-old guys. He was an 18 to 20. He was in that demo. I don't know, like exactly. I remember what it was 20 or 22 or something like that. He thought I was making it for him. The demo that ended up falling in love with his work is 11 to 17-year-old girls. So if he was writing for himself, I mean, I guess that's fine. He was kind of writing for him, but like that's not the person who bought his book. The 18 to 24-year-old guys could care less about Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. It was a completely different demo. So if he focused all his marketing and attention on 18 to 24-year-old guys, they never would have broken through. It's because he was writing for him, but his market was somebody completely different. So I don't know. You have to do the analysis on that and see, like, are you really the demographic for that person? I'll be honest, like I didn't go to that many punk clubs when I was a kid. Like I had a rebellious streak in me, but like I never like broke curfew or I didn't like I only like slightly sometimes kind of drank when I was in high school. Like in the like I never like smoked or did any of that stuff. Like I have no tattoos. I am not a girl. I don't have like very colorful hair. I don't have a bunch of tattoos or like lip rings or stuff, but like those are the people who buy my books. Like I am an anarchist in like spirit, but not in actually how I look. So like if I wrote for me, I'm not sure how I would do, because I'm not the guy. Like I'm not the guy who was most likely to buy my work. I like my work, but the person who's going to rave about my work is somebody with like this like a much deeper punk rock spirit than like I have ever exhibited in my life.
Mm-hmm. That's very, very interesting. So one of the other things I wanted to ask you about that we talked briefly before the show started was this idea that you do. Probably going to forget how you said it, but it was like basically shoving 10 years of life into 1 year's worth of time or something to that effect. Can you go into a little bit of detail about this like idea of doing as much as you possibly can in a short duration to see if the outcomes are something you think are working, or you should continue or pivot and do something different?
Sure. So most things take 10 years to become an expert in. Like the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours is about 10 years, 8 to 10 years of time. So I figure that in order to be an expert at anything, you need about 10 years. So my goal is, how do I get that same amount of information in 1 year or 3 months or 2 years? So it could be writing a bunch of books. 1 year I wrote 18 books in 18 months. So I guess a little bit more than a year. Actually, I wrote 20 books in 20 months. So I was very interested in like upping my game of writing. Another time I said, I'm going to take 3 years. I'm going to do every convention that I can find for 3 years. And I became an expert at those conventions in about what would have probably taken me 5 or 6 years in about 6 months, because I had done like 30 conventions in that first 6 months. This podcast thing that I'm on now, starting in March, I would decide to be on every podcast that I could find. And I've now done about 70 podcasts that I am a guest on, and trying to figure out like what the thing is that I like or don't like. When I started my podcast, I did 100 episodes in a little less than 8 months, just to see if there was any traction, or even if I liked it, or like what kind of podcast episodes were the things that I like resonated with, what kind of things that I want to say, what kind of voice that I want to grow. And so all of these things are ways to kind of go all in on a topic and test out a topic and see if you want to be an expert in it, or if you want to be an expert. Like I know that I want to be a writer. Like that's the thing that I want to do. Like I want to make comics and books and edit things. And so my goal was then to say, what would it look like if I did 10 years of work in 1 year? Like what do I want to do where do I want to be in 10 years? All right, what would it be like what would I have to do to get there in 1 year? And that's compacting a lot of stuff in 1 year. And like, you're probably never going to be the place you're going to be in 10 years, just because like time is a factor, but cramming all of that information into an accelerated timeline is what has allowed me to become experts in podcasting and writing and like building a business and all of the things that I end up doing, because I'm accelerating the timetable, sort of like rapid prototyping, to make sure that I'm becoming the most effective version of that thing. Otherwise, I have to wait 10 years to see if like it makes sense for me to continue on a writing career. And I don't want that. Like, I want to know whether there's any hope for it, like in one calendar year.
Mm-hmm. I love that approach because I mean, maybe I was looking at it a little differently, but I was like, hey, when I did my podcast or I started the idea of wanting to do it, I was like, I need to set a number of episodes or duration of doing it so that I didn't give up too soon and decide like, oh, it got hard, so I quit. But I quit for the wrong reason. Like I quit because I never gave it enough time to figure out how to turn my microphone on properly. So I abandoned it. But in reality, like I wanted to do it for a certain amount of time and then at the end go, hey, did I like it or did I not like it? And what didn't I like about it? And if it's like, oh, there's technical stuff you don't like, oh, well, send that to somebody to do it for you. If it's like, oh, you completely hated chatting with people, then like, yeah, you could pivot and go somewhere else. But I do, and inadvertently, maybe I've done this in the past, but like when I get interested in a topic, I just get like super fascinated with it. And like, I can't stop talking about it. And I just get like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then, I don't know, it seems to be like a 3 to 5 year process. And then I'm like, okay, I've kind of like had enough of this idea. Like I'm ready to move on to other things. But a lot of that knowledge that I think you gathered, like goes over towards other things in your life. So like, you know, you figure out how to go to trade shows, you're figuring that out. You're also learning skills like how do you connect with people better? You're learning about people in the industry. And then if you decide like, well, you know, I want to kind of go over here and do something else, all these skills you learned are transferable, but you're not having this learning curve to go do it. So like you're able to just kind of compound that and do amazing things. So I think that's a really cool way to do it. And a lot of people underestimate what they could do in a year or two. You know, they're like, hey, you know, if I wanted to write, like you said, 20 books, you told me to write 20 books, I'm already thinking 20 years. But you go, hey, you know, maybe your first one takes longer than it should, but the 20th one probably comes a lot quicker because you're better at generating ideas. You know the process of getting creative. You know what you need to do to, like, if I started writing a book today, I'd be like, I don't even know where to begin. Like, do I make an outline? Do I start writing? Just see where it goes. And then by the 20th, you go, nope, here's the formula. You just kind of do this and follow the steps and see where it goes. So it's definitely a very cool way to approach life. You talked a little bit about the words all in, and that's always my question I kind of round out the show with, is getting your take on what it means to be all in on an idea or an outcome. What's your take on that?
This is really hard because I'm not sure that I believe in being all in on anything. I think that we have a tendency, like I think it's a good idea to like have a goal, but I fear being too focused on like, this is hard because like I'm on one hand, I'm like very much about like the one thing and like the one thing you can do to move forward. But I think that most entrepreneurs and most humans are at a level that like they're not ready for a one thing. Like they don't even know the thing that they want to do. So I think that there's like two parts of this. And in the first part, your main thing is to literally never go all in on anything, to just like test all of the things, like play with all of the stuff, just like you're in school, like do a podcast for 10 episodes and hate it. Like your 20s. Like I think that the idea that you should have to like have a job or do things or like society is telling you to man up or woman up or like be button up in your 20s is asinine, like, because that's how you get 40-year-olds who like regret everything that they've done for the past 20 years. I think that you need time, assuming you can like make money and like you're not like a deviant, is you need time to play and say, okay, I graduated college or I didn't go to college and like went to trade school, like whatever the thing is, like I got to figure it out. Like I've got to like be a plumber and I've got to like be an IT tech and I've got to be able to be a lawyer. I've got to like test all of these things and see what I actually like and how to like combine it in a new and interesting way so that like I have skills that are valuable. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying like, well, what's the next step? Like, I think that's so like, I'm so appreciative of like my 20s being able to be like basically like just a complete screw up and like making movies and like writing books and like making comics and like luckily I was married and like I had like the personal thing went well, but I had a safe space to fail. And I think that is so critical in the early stage of your career, because in the second stage, you're now like focused. You know what you like and what you don't like. And you can actually make a plan that has intent into it. Instead of just saying, well, I guess I'm going to be an entrepreneur now. And then like, maybe that doesn't work. And like you blow $5,000 here and $6,000, or whatever that thing is. Like by the time you're ready to like build sort of this pyramid of like, this is the next domino that's got to fall. I know I want to be a writer. This might happen when you're 10. I don't know. It might happen when you're 40. But like whatever the thing is, like my goal is to be a USA Today bestselling author, or USA Today bestselling author, or like or X, Y, and Z other thing. You can put that at the top of your like one thing pyramid, and you can then say, okay, here's all of the things that I need to go all in on this, and I can cut everything else out, and I can focus. And you know that you're focused in the right direction, because you've got to have like very intense focus to break through. Like it's got to be like a singular minded focus, at least in your business, in your business life, because it is so hard to cut through and it becomes harder every day to cut through and make an impact, that you have to be laser focused. But we are giving people over here like such bad ideas about like how to be successful, that they are now trying to build this thing on like a rickety foundation, and they can't have laser focus because they have no idea what they want. They were just told that they should get a job in IT, or like they should told that this thing and that thing and the other thing, but they hate their life and they hate what they're doing. And it wasn't until I hit like 32 that I really knew like the thing. I had like the whole blueprint out. And like, yeah, that may have been longer than a lot of people. But when I got it, it was so much easier to double down and go all in on everything that I had to do to make that happen. Because, you know, I could say, yes, this is what I want. I can be away from my wife every weekend. I can like stay up late. I can get up early. I can do whatever I have to do in this short time frame, because I already did all of it. Like, and some of it I didn't know I would like I didn't know idea I would like negotiating contracts. Like that was a nice surprise that like I just got like, oh, by exploring and being able to like make a movie. Like I shot a movie in my 20s and made comics and did all this stuff. So I knew for a fact when I was ready to do the pyramid and go after the one thing and go all in, that I was ready for it.
Yeah, I love that, because like, and I was one of those people. I think I graduated college and you kind of do the job and you take those next steps because that's what you're expected to do. Maybe because I was Gen X, it's a little different, but than kids nowadays, or to think there's a little bit more flexibility. But I don't know. I'm not in that boat. But I would tell people that were coming up in their careers, if they said, "Hey, what would you do differently as a kid and when you were my age?" And I'd say, I would be like, right now you think you want to do all these things, and you probably think, well, maybe when I make some more money or I get a little bit more advanced in my career, I'll go travel the world or go see these things. And I say, I would do that now, because one, it's going to cost you a lot less than you think it does. You can figure out ways to make it an affordable trip. And as you get older, you're going to get responsibilities and stuff comes into your life that you can't get away. Like if you start having kids or you get a mortgage, and then it becomes difficult to go do those crazy things you wanted to do as a kid. And then like, you're right, you wake up, you're in your 40s and you go, hey, you know, I kind of spent 20 years of my life just, you know, down this path that's just not bringing me a lot of fulfillment. How do I pivot? How do I go figure out what it is I want to do? And oh, by the way, I don't have the time or the ability to go chase these pursuits. And it takes, like you said, a lot longer to master the 10 years of time to become a master at something, doing it part-time, you know? So then you're like, how do you go and, you know, put in a bazillion hours in time learning to become a hobbyist to a professional in this short period of time when you can only do it part-time. So definitely agree with your take. Like, play around, figure out what you like, and then that all builds on itself. And when you're ready to get the pyramid in place, you got the parts and pieces and you're ready to rock and roll on it. So very cool.
I think that it's important to like have time to play in your early years, but then you also have to, I had a thing where I was like, I can screw around as much as I want in my 20s, assuming I can make money and like, I'm not pissing off my wife too much. But by 30, I had to like have a deal. I had to like, be like, I have to be ready for like life, and like whatever job I have to take at 30, I like had to do a thing. So I do think there's a time for play, but there is a time to be like, okay, I played. Now, like what am I actually going to do? Because you also don't want to be that 40-year-old who like is still making no money, like doing like, not making no money and like having like enjoying themselves. But there's also the 40-year-old who's like, I have no skills. I'm 40 and like I'm broke, and you don't want to be either side of that. So you've got to, it's a balance to walk, but you do, I think we're expecting people, we've always expected people to like make this big career decision that's going to be going for 40 years, 50 years, like way too early, and then stick with it way too early. And I'm glad that people can sort of donk around now, but I still think that the idea that like, oh, I've got to go and like start making money in my early 20s, or know what I want to do in my early 20s or late teens or whatever, or even late 20s, it's like we're doing this thing was like, oh, he's just flighty. Like, no, he just like hates everything. Like he hasn't found a thing that he likes. Like, it's great that you found the thing that you liked when you were 10, but like, we're not all like that. Like I came out here wanting to make movies, and now I write novels, and like, that's a totally different thing.
Yeah, who would have thought that, that would have happened? But let's talk about CompleteCreative.com. So you talked a little bit about who that person is that reads your books, but CompleteCreative.com isn't. It's a little different. It's coaching. It's showing people how to lead a successful life. So who are the people that should be checking out your website? Who's that person you're appealing to there?
Okay, so it's normally storytellers, but it is any creative who has been banging their head against the wall for years, trying to build a following. That is the number one person, and I know that's kind of broad. It's because the person is pretty much the same person as the wannabe press person. It's just instead of focusing on my books, I focus on the creative pursuit and the pursuit of creativity. So I just wanted to break up like what I was sending both people. But it's pretty much the same kind of person that that I write for Wannabe Press or The Complete Creative. It's just I do it I talk about the process in excruciating detail on The Complete Creative, and I talk more about my books and like the storytelling with the Wannabe Press people. Well, it's basically somebody who is doing something creative and has tried and knows how to make a good product, but has no idea how to monetize it or build a fan base. That is really like ideally the person. And it's most creative humans know how to make a product and have no idea how to sell it.
I totally resonated with that, because when you said it's somebody that's banged their head on the wall to like get a following, it's like, yeah, you go out there and you go, why if I follow the 10 rules of social media engagement, like I get 0 likes on my post, but over here this other person did the exact same thing and boom, like they go bonkers crazy. And it's like, I just don't get it sometimes, and it's probably like, there's a lot I've resonated with personally when you said, hey, you who's that person you're marketing to? Who's your message for? Who's your voice to? And it's like, you're right. I'm not at that level of detail. I'm not into their psyche. I'm not really identifying that person. And, it's going, hey, there's probably a reason why, because you're just lukewarm water. You're just kind of vanilla. Like people like it. They're just not super excited about like vanilla ice cream,
Yeah. So I have a course. My big course is called Build a Rabid Fan Base. If you go to thecompletecreative.com/audience, I give you a little 20-minute demonstration of basically how to start and grow your fan base. Right there. It's free. And it sort of gives you at least the base of knowledge for how to like find your perfect person and grow it. And then you get put in an email sequence, you do get $100 off the course if you get it. But like even just that 20-minute course is quite powerful. And you can get it at thecompletecreative.com/audience. And you can find my podcast over on thecompletecreative.com too. Epic blog posts, over 400 blog posts ranging from a couple hundred words all the way up to 10,000 words, and plus and other free courses, paid courses. And it's just like my goal is to be a resource for people so that at the end of this whole thing, they can look back and be like, wow, he really did sort of lay out what it means to lead a creative life.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and it went a lot of different directions that I really thought it was going to go. It's been a ton of fun. I know you're a little pressed for time, so I'll let you get out of here, but thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for being a part of it. And, I'm going to definitely check out that 20-minute clip. And I think anybody else that's listening, they should go out there and check it out too. There's so much knowledge in just niche. Everybody says niche down, but I don't think me personally, I've heard it be defined how niche that really needs to be. So awesome conversation.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Make sure to visit our website, therealnatepeo.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, so you'll never miss an episode of All In. While you're at it, if you found value, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if simply tell 2 friends about the show. Looking to connect? You can find Nate Peo on LinkedIn or Instagram.